Welcome back, my dear students. Very good morning to everybody. Let's continue the chapter called Moving Charges and Magnetism. Let's begin. So, name of the chapter was Moving Charges and Magnetism. In this chapter, we have discussed a straight current carrying wire. Imagine it is infinite straight current carrying wire. What is the magnetic field at a distance r from here? So that's B is equal to mu naught I by 2 pi r. Already we have discussed and derived by using Biot-Savart law. By using Biot-Savart's law, we have done it. Now, the same wire is bent into the form of circle. A current is passing through this circular current carrying wire. This is the center. At the center, what's the magnetic field? A mu naught I by 2r if there is one loop is present here. The same wire is bent into the form of circle. By using the same Biot-Savart law, we could find the magnetic field at the center. Now, the same wire, I am just bending in the form of this, and this is the wire, or the shape is called a solenoid. What is solenoid? All those things are not required for us now. It was there and it was discussed during our second PUC classes. Now, the same solenoid means the same wire I have bent into this form. This also you can see, I have bent into this form, my dear students. And this is the shape is called toroid, and this toroid will have two radius. You can see one is internal radius, this is R1, another one is external radius, it is R2. And this is what the axis of the solenoid, okay? And here there is a current I is flowing, and through here also there is a current I is flowing, my dear students. Now, magnetic field due to this is done, magnetic field is due to this is done, and the magnetic field due to solenoid and magnetic field due to the toroid we are going to discuss. And before moving to that, there is a topic called Ampere's circuital law. Ampere's circuital law. Okay. So, what is Ampere's circuital law? Imagine, so there is a closed path I have, closed path, and the magnetic field lines are passing through this closed path like this. The magnetic field lines are passing through the closed path like this. Now, there are currents are moving out of the plane, and there are currents which are moving into the plane. There are currents out of the plane, so there are currents into the plane. Understand? There are currents out of the plane, and outside this closed loop also there are some currents, my dear students. It's a I5. See, current I5 is moving out of the plane like this. Current I2 is moving into the plane like this. You know, Ampere's circuital law states that, from here I am writing, closed integral B bar dot dl bar is equal to mu naught into current enclosed. Look at this. Closed integral B bar dot dl bar is equal to mu naught into current enclosed. And how to find that? Look at this. Closed integral B bar dot dl bar is equal to mu naught into current enclosed. Means current enclosed in the loop. This current will not be considering. Right? Now, so these currents we'll consider, but how we can consider? Some are out of the plane, some are into the plane. How can you consider now? Listen. So by using our right hand thumb rule, you can find the sign convention to write these currents. Imagine, so this is what the curl of the fingers represent the magnetic field. The curl of the fingers are representing the magnetic field. And you see, the curl of the fingers are representing magnetic field and the thumb is pointing out of the plane. When you adjust your curl of the fingers in the direction of magnetic field, the thumb direction currents to be considered as positive. And in this case, thumb direction currents I1, yes, out of the plane. I3, yes, out of the plane. They are taken as positive. So I1 plus I3. Understand? I1 plus I3. See, once again, in the direction of B bar, I am holding my curl of the fingers and thumb is pointing outwards and those currents are positive. I1 and I3 are positive and I4 and I2 are negative. So that is minus I2 minus I4. So this is what the expression for the Ampere circuit law. With the applications of this one, with the application of this, we could find the expression for the magnetic field due to the solenoid and the magnetic field due to the toroid. We are not going to derive anything right now. But my dear students, listen everyone, how to find the magnetic field. Sir, what is the expression of the magnetic field due to the solenoid, right? Listen everybody. So, this is the solenoid. And you might have remember the previous concept called clock face rule. Okay, now, so from this side, the current is passing. When you are looking from this end, what happened? So there is a clockwise or anti-clockwise current passing through this particular loop. So that particular face of the coil will behave as a particular pole of a magnet. North pole or south pole, whatever it may be. So I am just imagining that this is the north pole, this is the south pole. You know, when a current is carried by a solenoid, it behaves exactly as a bar magnet. A current carrying solenoid will behave exactly as a bar magnet, remember. And you know the magnetic field lines of the bar magnet. And they move north to south outside the magnet and south to north inside the magnet. Once again, north to south outside the magnet, south to north inside the magnet. So north to south outside the magnet, south to north inside the magnet. And they form the closed loop, you see. Outside the magnet they are moving and inside the magnet also they are moving and they are forming the closed loop, my dear children. And this is similar to the bar magnet property. Okay, coming back to the magnetic field. Inside the solenoid, at any point if you take the magnetic field is mu naught Ni. Outside the solenoid, the magnetic field is 0. And at the ends of the solenoid, the magnetic field is a mu naught Ni divided by 2. Remember? So this is inside and this is at the ends of the solenoid. And this is outside. And very important, what is this N? That is important. So in this formula, this N, let's discuss about that small n later. But what I wanted to convey to you is, everybody, this is called air cored solenoid. Air cored solenoid. There is no medium present in it. Imagine there is a medium is present inside that is called iron. Iron is the medium is kept inside. Then that behaves as an electromagnet. About electromagnet we can discuss later. But that is called iron cored solenoid. In this case, the magnetic field due to the solenoid inside the solenoid will be, it's not mu now, right? It is not at all mu now because, sorry, mu not now. It will be mu into Ni. What is that mu now? We know here, mu r is equal to mu by mu naught. That is relative permeability, which is equal to permeability in a medium by permeability in free space. So from here, mu value we can write it as mu r into mu naught into Ni. Understand? So mu naught into Ni is air cored solenoid magnetic field. Okay, so that is B. This is the iron cored solenoid, which is equal to mu r into B naught. Mu r into B naught, right? I hope it's very clear to everybody. I hope it's very clear to everybody. Now let's move on to the toroid. So by using the same Ampere circuital law, toroid, the magnetic field due to the toroid also we can find here. Listen, the magnetic field due to the toroid, outside the magnetic field is 0. Inside, that means inside here, the magnetic field is 0. That means at the center of the toroid it is 0. Outside the toroid it is 0. Now, inside some point you take, this is the point P. And inside that B is equal to mu naught Ni. What is this N? That is most important. I just wanted to convey about that. What is that N, you know? So the small n is equal to number of turns per unit length. And most of the students will commonly make the mistakes here. That small n is not the number of turns. And small n is number of turns per unit length. Number of turns per unit length. So this can be written as capital N by small l. Number of turns per unit length. This is number of turns per unit length. 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 Right? And this we can also write it as mu naught into number of turns per unit length. It's a 2 pi into r. Because the radius is r here. The radius is r here. Length is 2 pi r, circumference of this circle is 2 pi r into I. Okay, clear? And remember this. So this is the expression for the toroid, my dear student. And this r, if you want r, that is average of these two radius. External radius and internal radius. That is the important thing. Right? So this is the solenoid and this is the toroid and this is magnetic field due to a straight wire, and there are several cases in the straight wire we have already discussed, right? So this is the magnetic field due to the circular current carrying wire due to arc, and in this circular current carrying wire at a distance x from the center, what is the magnetic field? Those all things we have discussed. Okay. Clear? Now, look at this. You know, this is the expression we have discussed by using Biot-Savart law. Not only through the Biot-Savart law, from the Ampere circuital law also you can derive this. Okay? That is there in your notebook. You just have a look at it for the entrance point of view, and this is very important. If you are lucky enough, from this slide itself there will be a concept. From this slide itself there will be a question in your NEET exam or CET exam, right? So get ready, my dear students. Now what are we going to do now is, see, a little advanced level topic we are going to do now. A little advanced level. I'm just removing this little advanced level. We'll solve the numericals also on this, don't worry. Numericals also based on these topics we will solve, don't worry. And let's move on to the next. A magnetic field due to a solid cylinder. This is little higher level. Solid cylinder and hollow cylinder. Magnetic field due to the solid cylinder and hollow cylinder. Let's talk about the solid cylinder, my dear students. So this is what a solid cylinder, carefully observe. This is the axis of the cylinder here. This is the solid cylinder. I just represented like this so that you will understand it is solid. A radius of this is Rm. Right? Now, at any point inside at a distance small r, you know, this is the first point P1. the magnetic field will be a mu naught I small r divided by 2 pi capital R square. You remember this expression? Remember this expression. Mu naught I, through this, the current I is flowing. Through this, the current I is flowing. Small r is the point of consideration from the axis of the solid cylinder. So now, in the second case is here somewhere on the surface. Small r is equal to capital R, second case, second point. And at the second point, B2 is equal to mu naught I by 2 pi R. It is like a straight current carrying wire. Mu naught I by 2 pi R, where capital R is radius of the solid cylinder. Now, the point, the third case, so the point is lying here, somewhere here at a distance small r from the axis of the cylinder. So, you know, B3 is equal to mu naught I by 2 pi into small r. That's it. So, if you draw a graph for this, that is very important. In one of the year's NEET exam, this graphical representation question was asked. So now, if I draw the graph here, my dear students, and have a look at the graph. So this is B and this is R. So within the solid cylinder, the magnetic field and the R, what is the relation here? So B is directly proportional to R. And on the surface and outside, B is inversely proportional to R. And how can you write this now? So B is directly proportional to R, where till we reach the R value equal to the surface distance, means the radius. So from here it is decreasing. So B is inversely proportional to R. So very important for the solid cylinder. Okay, let me write the first one. What we have discussed is the solid cylinder. This is a little higher level concept. Now, the second case what? Second case is hollow cylinder. Hollow cylinder, for your better understanding, so I am just using this color. So this is the hollow cylinder. This is the hollow cylinder. This is the axis. So current I is flowing here. And the very important thing is, inside the magnetic field is zero because there is no mass present here. Inside the magnetic field is zero, and exactly when small r is equal to capital R, at this point, this is the first point and second point. First point is 0 and the second point is mu naught I by 2 pi R, and the third point from here to at a distance small r, this is the third point. B3 is equal to mu naught I by 2 pi into small r. Right? I hope much explanation is also not required for this, my dear students. And let's draw the graph. Let's draw the graph, and this is B and this is R. So here inside, from the axis to the surface, no magnetic field. So no magnetic field. Magnetic field will be starting from here when small r is equal to capital R. From here, outside the hollow cylinder. So B is inversely proportional to R. Okay? So non-stop it is going, my dear children. Non-stop. You must focus it completely. So this is called hollow cylinder. This is called hollow cylinder. Okay? These two cases are important. In some of the NEET exams and sometimes in JEE exam also, these questions were asked based on this. Right? So especially everything is easy. My dear students, some students will feel difficult in this formula. No difficulty is involved. No difficulty is involved here. Right? So carefully go through it and observe it. Now, let's continue now. Here, what are we going to do now is about, so look at this interesting part. Magnetic force on a current carrying wire. magnetic force on a current carrying wire. Imagine a situation, there is a magnetic field like this. Imagine the magnetic field is like this, so this is B bar. So there is a wire through which the current I is flowing is kept here, which is making an angle theta, and the effective length of the wire L bar is like this. This is point A and this is point B. You know, force acting on this wire, F bar is equal to I into L bar cross B bar. See how nice this equation. F bar is equal to I into L bar cross B bar. And my dear students, you already know F is equal to Q into V bar cross B bar. So that's F bar. What is this? Force on a moving charge in a magnetic field. So this is what? Force on a moving charge in a magnetic field. And this is what? Force on a current carrying wire in a magnetic field. This is force on a moving charge in a magnetic field. And what is this? Force on a current carrying wire in a magnetic field. So now when you expand this equation, you get it. F is equal to BIL sine theta, where theta is angle between B and L. So this L is called L effective. Here most of the students will get confused here. L effective, most of the students will get confused. What is L effective here? Most of the students. What is L effective here? That is important. L effective is the straight line length between initial and final point. And this is the initial point and this is the final point. The straight line length between initial point and the final point is that L. Right? Clear? So because sometimes, look at here, sometimes this is the magnetic field. See, this is the magnetic field. This is the magnetic field. Everybody, look at here. This is the magnetic field which is into the plane. So there is a wire is kept like this. Observe carefully. There is a wire, a semicircular wire is kept here whose radius is capital R and the point A is here, point B is here. The semicircular wire is kept perpendicular to the magnetic field. So its effective length is this one. I told you L effective is equal to the straight line distance between A and B, initial point and the final point. Yes, this is the straight line distance. And in this case, F is equal to B into I into 2R. So this is I, current I, into sine theta. Theta is 90 degrees here because L bar is in this direction, magnetic field is in this direction, theta is 90, sine 90 is 1. So F is equal to BI2R. Right? Clear? And depends on this theta value. So this value can be 0, this value can be maximum, like that. Okay? Clear? Now, so at this point, in this case only, let's continue further. At this point, what is the magnetic force? At this point, what is the magnetic force? Simple. Magnetic force finding is easy by using your left hand, Fleming's left hand rule. Magnetic force by using Fleming's left hand rule. And see, this is the forefinger is representing the direction of magnetic field. This is the magnetic field direction. And my middle finger is representing direction of current. And you see, this is the direction of current. Have a look at it. And the thumb is pointing upwards. That will gives you the force direction. Yes. So, at this point, the magnetic force is acting upwards. The magnetic force is acting upwards at this point. The magnetic force is acting upwards at this point. So this is how magnetic force on a current carrying wire concept will be discussed. Okay, let's see one more application further. So little bit higher level if we go, magnetic force on a current carrying wire, how the application will be discussed. Let us discuss now. How this application will be discussed, and let's see it right now. How the application is discussed. Now, continue this application related to this, simple application. So there is a rigid support, there is a spring here, there is another spring here. Imagine its spring constant is K. So there is a rod which is connected here, there is a rod through which the current I is flowing, and this complete setup, rod is having a mass M, and this complete setup is kept in magnetic field where the field lines are into the plane. Complete setup is kept in the magnetic field where the field lines are into the plane like this. You know what is that? This is the length of the wire is L. When I keep it like this, whatever may be, whether it is in magnetic field or when it is not in the magnetic field, when you connect some mass to these springs, what happens? So this particular rod will come down due to the weight mg. When it comes down, there is an elongation takes place here, there is an elongation takes place here. The spring force will develop upwards, so that is kx. Another spring force will develop upwards, that is also kx. Understand? And one more force is also there. So imagine after elongating to x distance, so the system is in equilibrium. After elongating downwards to the x distance, system is in equilibrium. My dear students, when the system is in equilibrium, net upward forces must be equal to net downward forces. And what are the net downward forces? So one and only force mg, which is equal to net upward forces 2kx plus some force is there which is acting net upward. One force is there which is acting net upward direction. What is that? That is important. Right? What is that force? Right? You know what is that force? This is the current carrying wire having a length L placed in the magnetic field. Simple. By using Fleming's left hand rule, magnetic field and the current, you see the thumb is pointing upwards. The magnetic force is upwards, right? The magnetic force is upwards. Have a look at it. This is called the magnetic force on a current carrying wire. So what is that? What is that? BIL. What is that? BIL. From here, anything you can find out. So they give you some data, they'll ask you some unknown thing. So every detail they may give and they may ask you to find x, and you should be in a position finding that x. You should be in a position finding that x, and x finding is so simple, yeah. So mg minus BIL divided by 2k, which is equal to x. See this? So all the data is given. So finding x is simple. Is it a difficult task? No, it's so simple task. Clear? Now let's move on to the let's move on to the next topic. So the next topic is force of interaction between two current carrying wires. Force of interaction between two current carrying wires. Imagine a situation. So this is the wire through which the current I1 is flowing, and this is the wire through which the current I2 is flowing. Okay? You know, when two wires are, the distance between them is R. When two different currents are passing through the wires, when the direction of current is same, so there is an attraction force developed between these two, and most of the students will think that there is a repulsion force takes place. No, there is an attraction force takes place between these two. And how the attraction force takes place? And neat derivation is given in the notes, and you can go through it if you want. Okay. And this wire will apply a force on the second wire due to the first wire, and this will apply a force on the first wire due to the second wire, like this. there is an attraction force developed between them, and and in the same way goes when a current I1 is here, when the current I2 here, and the distance is r, there is a repulsion force takes place between these two. Students, there is a repulsion force takes place between these two, and this force of interaction, see here, so this is the repulsion force, force on the first due to 2, force on the second due to 1. Whatever it may be, that's a force of interaction. What is that? Force of interaction. And that force of interaction is equal to mu naught I1 I2 by 2 pi r into L. You know what is this L? Unit length. That unit length, if it comes here, force per unit length is equal to mu naught I1 I2 by 2 pi r. Very, 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 very important formula. Mu naught I1 I2 by 2 pi r. Force per unit length, force of interaction between these two wires per unit length is mu naught I1 I2 by 2 pi r. So mu naught value, I hope you remember, but still I would like to write here 4 pi into 10 raised to minus 7 Tesla meter per ampere. 4 pi into 10 raised to minus 7 Tesla meter per ampere. Okay, so this is how force of interaction between two current carrying wires we can discuss. Alright, and there are some more applications here, so that we will learn. So what is that application left here? Look at this. What is that application left here? Look at it. Simple application, Amma. So there's no difficulties involved here. Very simple application, and the most commonly asked question for all entrance exams, NEET, JEE, CET. Most commonly asked application is this one. So there is a current I1 is flowing through this wire, and very close to it, so there is a current is flowing through this loop in this direction. I2 is the current flowing in this direction. Simple. What is the force of interaction between them? And whether this is fixed, imagine this is fixed. Whether this loop will move towards this or away from this, that's a question. So imagine the distance between these 2 points, they have given A, and the distance between these two they have given B. Right, that is A and B here. Okay, my dear students, and have a look at it. So there is a force of interaction between these two, that's F1. What is F1? Mu naught I1 I2 by 2 pi A. So that is the which direction here. So definitely these two will attract as it is fixed, and this will be attracted, that is F21, force on the second due to the first, goes like that. Alright, now what is the force of interaction between these two? F2 is equal to mu naught I1 I2 by 2 pi B. So this is what? It is fixed, right? And it will repel like this. This is force on the second due to the first. So which is greater, F1 or F2? Students, tell me which is greater, F1 or F2? You write it in the WhatsApp, F1 or F2? Are you following it or not? You write it in the WhatsApp. Are you following it or not? You write it in the WhatsApp, my dear students. So then only I will understand. Then only I will understand. Right? Write it in the WhatsApp. Write it in the WhatsApp. Okay. So this is F21 is greater than F21. This F21. Right? Because the distance, you see, as the distance is more here, so the interaction becomes less. Distance is more there, interaction will be less. So that's the reason. So this is greater. So what can I write? This is means this one F1. Okay. So as F1 is greater than F2, so definitely the loop will attract. The loop attracts, number one, the loop attracts the wire. And number 2, the net force is equal to F1 minus F2. F1 mu naught I1 I2 by 2 pi A minus mu naught I1 I2 by 2 pi B. Mu naught I1 I2 by 2 pi you take common and you get it. So this is how the net force between the wire and the loop also you can find. Net force between the wire and the loop also you can find. Okay, so there are some more applications and remaining applications will discuss madakagalla. I hope you understand that. Right now, so one important note I would like to give here, one important note, and that's called the magnetic moment, my dear students. So it's denoted with the symbol m bar, which is equal to I into a bar. A bar is a vector, I is a scalar, just I maybe 1 ampere, 2 ampere, 3 ampere, whatever it may be. It is just the multiplication with a vector. So what is the SI unit of this magnetic moment here? So SI unit of magnetic moment is ampere per meter square. This is ampere, this is meter square. Very important, right? Ampere per meter square. So this is what the magnetic moment concept we will be using in the torque, where we'll be using torque experienced by a current carrying loop. Torque experienced by a current carrying loop. Okay. So before we discuss that, torque experienced by the current carrying loop, and let's solve few numericals related to whatever we have discussed so far. So then we'll go to the numerical, then we'll move to the concept of torque, moving coil galvanometer, and how the galvanometer will be converted into different measuring instruments like voltmeter and ammeter. So that's the end of the chapter. That's the end of the class also. Okay. So just look at the numericals what we are going to solve right now. L is given as angular momentum for an electron which is revolving in a circular orbit. The radius of the circular orbit is m, and they are asking you to find out magnetic moment. And we know the magnetic moment is equal to I into A. And this magnetic moment I can write I is Q by T into A is a pi r square. And this we can also write the magnetic moment is equal to E pi r square divided by 2 pi r by V. This is what the time period of the particle in the circular path. Then what can I write here? Pi r and pi r cancel here. What is left? E r into this V goes to the numerator divided by 2. And we know the angular momentum. Angular momentum is mvr. From here what can I write? Vr is equal to L by m. Right? So this is E into L by 2m. So this is the magnetic momentum. This is the magnetic moment. A very, very important question, magnetic moment. So most of the students will give the less preference for this magnetic moment concept, but if you are lucky enough, you may get a question from this magnetic moment. But it is so easy to solve because the magnetic moment is equal to I into A. Direct. Magnetic moment is equal to I into A. Area of the loop. Here the area of the loop is pi r square. If they give the square, area is A square. Understand? So the side length is A, side length is A square. This area is A square. Alright. Now, magnetic field inside the solenoid, it's B. What's the formula for this? B is equal to mu naught Ni, where N is what? Number of turns per unit length. Okay. So the current I is doubled and the number of turns are half. Then what is the new magnetic field? That's the question. What's the new magnetic field here? So from here I can write B is directly proportional to Ni, and B1 by B2 is equal to N1 by N2 into I1 by I2. And what is N1 here? It's a N. What is N2? It is N by 2 into, what is I1? I. What is I2? It's doubled. So what is this? N gets cancelled. Here the numerator is 2. And that numerator 2 and denominator 2 and I cancel and answer is 1. So B1 is equal to B2. No change in magnetic field. Is it interesting? No change in the magnetic field inside the solenoid when the current is doubled and the number of turns are halved. Next, 200 turns per centimeter. Current I is given. Magnetic field at the center of the solenoid 200 turns per centimeter. B is equal to mu naught into Ni, mu naught 4 pi into 10 raised to minus 7 into N. Number of turns 200 per meter, actually 200 per length we need, per unit length, but the length is given as centimeter. Unit length means we should take in SI units, the meter. So that is 10 raised to minus 2 into I. It's 2.5. If you solve, you will get the answer. Right? Check it and send me in the WhatsApp. Find out. Check it and send me the answer. Now, current loop A is given. Area is given. A circular loop area is given, current is given, magnetic field is given. You need to find the torque. You need to find the torque. Listen. Torque experienced by a current carrying loop in a magnetic field. Torque experienced by a current carrying loop in a magnetic field. That's a concept. Listen, my dear students, there is a current carrying loop. Carefully observe, there is a current carrying loop like this. It's kept in magnetic field. The first case, the magnetic field, you carefully observe. This is the magnetic field, my dear students. This is the magnetic field. Observe carefully. The B bar is like this. The magnetic field lines in the plane of the coil. You know, the torque experienced will be tau bar is equal to M bar cross B bar. And that I can write tau bar is equal to MB sine theta. You observe, my dear students, where theta is angle between M and B, M bar is nothing but IA bar. When there are n number of turns for this coil, I can write tau is equal to NIAB sine theta. Depends on the theta, the torque value will be different. Depends on the theta, the torque value will be different. I just wanted to mention here, if theta is 0 degrees and the torque is 0, and we say this is called the stable equilibrium condition. This is called what condition? Stable equilibrium. When theta is equal to 180 degrees and torque is 0, and this is called unstable equilibrium. In both the cases, torque is 0 only. At the stable equilibrium, at the unstable equilibrium, the torque is 0 only. And stable or unstable equilibrium, we will be deciding by using the concept called potential energy, my dear students. By using the concept of potential energy. Right? Okay. Now, if theta is 90 degrees and the torque is maximum, which is MB. Okay. Clear? Now, remember this expression and let's see this question, what they are talking about here. There is a circular loop. Okay. Area is 1 centimeter square. Okay. So, area of the loop they have given as 1 centimeter square. That's 1 into 10 raised to minus 2 meter whole square. And current is given as 10 ampere. And the magnetic field is given as 0.1 Tesla. See, the magnetic field is perpendicular to the plane of the coil. Students, okay, sorry. This is a circular coil they have given. Yes, this is the circular coil. So the magnetic field is into the plane or perpendicular to the coil. So the area of the coil is outwards like this. Area vector of the coil is outwards like this. And the magnetic field lines are, how the magnetic field lines are? Into the plane. So the angle between them is 180 degrees. So the torque is equal to mb sine 180 degrees. It is 0. So the torque is 0. Remember, how the magnetic field is applied is important. Perpendicular to the plane of the coil or in the plane of the coil. When it is in the plane of the coil, so the theta value is 90 degrees. When it is perpendicular to the plane of the coil, theta value may be 0 or 180. Those two cases are very important. So as they have given area, current, magnetic field, and they are asking you to find the torque, directly students will be using and substituting here. So you will get the wrong answer, because theta value you should know. Theta value you must know carefully what exactly the theta is. Like this, the questions also can come in the exams. Now, my dear children, and the questions and applications already we have done so far. Now, the topic is that moving coil galvanometer, the last concept of the chapter called moving coil galvanometer. The last concept of the chapter. Moving coil galvanometer, then how that moving coil galvanometer will be converted into ammeter and voltmeter. So both the things we will discuss. What's the topic now? Moving coil galvanometer. And this is the galvanometer is used to measure the small currents, to measure the very small currents in the circuit. We use this moving coil galvanometer. I am not going to draw the diagram of the moving coil galvanometer, because in our regular classes, so the neat diagram was mentioned over there. You can go through that. Now, in this moving coil galvanometer, there is a phenomenon called deflecting torque. Deflecting torque is exactly equal to restoring torque. Deflecting torque is exactly equal to the restoring torque. According to this, we have got an expression, electric current passing through the coil. This is the concept, is depends on the torque experienced by a coil which is kept in a magnetic field. Students, there is a torque concept behind it. See, the deflecting torque, restoring torque. Immediately after the discussion of the torque we are discussing. And in this moving coil galvanometer, so there is a radial magnetic field is applied, and why it is applied, that's a big story you might have studied for your theoretical exam. So radial magnetic field is applied. This is the phenomenon, and how it is used I have told you. And finally, how much electric current you send to the coil, that much amount of the deflection takes place. Reading it gives. So now from here, current I is equal to K by NAB into deflection. What is K? It's a constant. N, number of turns, area of the coil, and B is the magnetic field line, magnetic field strength. Okay, so this is the very important expression for this moving coil galvanometer. From here, what can you write, my dear students? Listen, I by theta is equal to K by NAB. From here, theta by I is very important, which is NAB by K. You know what is this theta by I? Do you know what is this theta by I? So this theta by I is called a current sensitivity, my dear children. The theta by I is called current sensitivity. And now if I multiply both the sides with respect to 1 by R, look at this. Theta by I into 1 by R, which is equal to 1 by r into NAB by K. This I can write theta by V is equal to IR. V, which is equal to NAB by KR. NAB by KR. You know what is this called? So when it is current sensitivity, deflection per unit current. When it is current sensitivity, deflection per unit current. So here, so this is called voltage sensitivity. Based on this also questions can come. How the voltage sensitivity varies with the number of turns? Directly proportional, right? When the number of turns are increased by keeping all these are constant, voltage sensitivity also increases. Here, when number of turns are increases, current sensitivity also increases when other quantities are constant. Right? Like this kind of questions can be asked. And this moving coil galvanometer, my dear students, can be converted into ammeter and voltmeter. Can be converted into ammeter and voltmeter. So the aim of the ammeter is to measure very small currents. And aim of the ammeter, a voltmeter, is to find the potential difference across the resistors, across the wires. So both the purposes can be solved by using moving coil galvanometer, and how we'll be discussing here. So in this case, listen my dear students, in this case, so this moving coil galvanometer plus shunt resistance will be used. And here voltmeter, moving coil galvanometer plus one high resistance we will be using. One high resistance will be using. These two you must remember. Shunt resistance is the low resistance. When resistance is low, maximum amount of current will pass through that. Okay. Now let us see how this moving coil galvanometer will be converted into ammeter. What are the important formulas related to it, we will discuss. So then the numericals of this part, moving coil galvanometer, and this conversion, and that's it. That's the end of the chapter and the class. Okay, get ready now. Moving coil galvanometer. Listen my dear students. So there is a galvanometer here. We need to convert it to the ammeter. When you connect a low resistance called shunt, this behaves as the ammeter. This complete setup will behave as ammeter. Total current passing through the circuit is I through the galvanometer, which is responsible for the maximum deflection in the galvanometer without any damage to it. So this is the current required for the maximum deflection in the galvanometer, and remaining current I minus Ig will be passing through the shunt and again comes back as I, as it is. Now what happens? As the shunt resistance is very less, maximum amount of current will pass through this. So that damage won't take place for the galvanometer. Now, here what you should understand, R effective value is equal to Gs by G plus S, number 1. And the second thing, as these two are connected in parallel, the potential across this is equal to potential across this. What is that? I suffix G into capital G is equal to I minus Ig into shunt. So from here shunt resistance I can write it as Ig into capital G by I minus Ig, and shunt resistance is equal to galvanometer resistance divided by I by Ig minus 1. Very important expression it is here. Very important expression, remember this. Very important expression. Right? So by using this the question can be asked, by using this the question can be asked. Now The same moving coil galvanometer, how it will be converted into voltmeter completely we will learn now. How simple it is, look at this. So there is a galvanometer and there is a high resistance R. Both are connected like this in series because when you connect in series, the resistance will be high, less current will flow through it. And even that less current also, I suffix G, which is responsible for the full scale of the galvanometer. And here also I suffix G only. In this case, effective resistance is R plus G. In this case, potential difference I suffix G into capital G plus I suffix G into capital R is equal to V. So what can I write here? I suffix G into capital R is equal to V minus I suffix G into capital G. And effective resistance, finally, effective resistance is equal to V by Ig minus capital G. This is the effective resistance. Sorry, it's not effective resistance, it is high resistance. How we have converted this moving coil galvanometer into voltmeter, this high resistance is must kept. How much that high resistance is? This much. Okay, my dear students? And let's solve and last numericals related to these formulas. Okay, so then particularly all these formulas. S is equal to G by I by Ig minus 1 and here R is equal to V by Ig minus G. Right? And the last two questions for the chapter and the class, let's have a look at it. In an ammeter, 0.2% of the main current passing through the galvanometer. I suffix G through the galvanometer it is passing means for the maximum deflection required current is moving. Ig is equal to how much? 0.2% of the total current. Resistance of the galvanometer is given as G. Now the resistance of the complete ammeter setup. Ammeter setup resistance is this one, right? What is that? R effective is equal to G into shunt resistance by G plus shunt resistance because they are connected in parallel combination. Now, what is this shunt resistance? You should know. See the shunt resistance. Shunt resistance is equal to G divided by I by Ig. Here it is Ig by I is 0.2 by 100. So this is I by Ig is 100 by 0.2 minus 1. So how can you write this one? So G divided by 100 by 0.2 I can write 2 by 10 minus 1. No confusions. So for your better understanding individually I am writing. So this is 500 minus 1. Understand? Clear? So this is G by 500 minus 1. It's a 499. So this is not the answer. This is the shunt resistance. Sometimes the question can be asked up to here. Shunt resistance. So sometimes it can go beyond that. Beyond that is this question. So what is the effective resistance? So R effective is equal to G into what is the shunt resistance we have got? G by 499 divided by G plus S. G plus S is again G by 499. Alright. So this is G square divided by 499 into 499 divided by, so what is here? Here it will be 500 G. 499 cancel and G cancel, and what is the answer? G by 500 is the answer. So this is the effective resistance of this ammeter circuit. Coming back to this, read this. About ammeter we have discussed one question based on the voltmeter. Given galvanometer resistance is 100 ohm and given the maximum deflection. For the maximum deflection of the galvanometer, current needed is I suffix G. Now 30 volt range voltmeter. Find the resistance required. This is the high resistance is required. When they mention high resistance, you should understand. So this is the setup is behaving as a voltmeter. For the voltmeter, finding the resistance, direct formula is there. And even of course we have derived just now. V by Ig. It's a 30 by Ig is 30 into 10 raised to minus 3 minus, so G is 100. Look at this, 30 cancel. 1000 minus 100, it's a 900 ohm high resistance. Okay, clear? So this is how this chapter will be discussed, and all the very best for your evening exam. And thank you so much for listening.